Do what speaks to you. This is what calls to me right now. Mm-hmm. I'm going to try to stop trying. and I suspect.
Yeah, and you, I think, want to end up being a 50-year-old alcoholic, you know, and not everyone wants that.
Yeah.
What up, dude?
Yo, we have a new set.
We do.
This took a minute to get working.
It did. I'm first irritated podcast. We'll see how I do.
So zoom out, everybody. This is the set. Yes, there is glare on the photos, but as you'll notice, we changed what you didn't like. We listened.
Let us know what you think, because we didn't set this up, and there's a prize for the person who did.
There's a prize in the running.
So we would love genuine feedback. If this is good, if it still needs work, the lights, the photos, everything.
There will be more work. We're going to try to get some of the glare reduced and all that kind of stuff, but let us know. Let us know what you think.
And if you're listening and not watching, let's get into the podcast.
Here's the beginning of the cast. So, do you want to go? I got some stuff, man.
Go for it. I'm coming in weak this podcast.
I got you covered.
Cool.
So, I've started reading a book that was recommended by DJ. DJ works with us. He's a coach for Charisma University. Yes. He, at least 4 times when we've talked to him, he's like, you got to read Cupid's Poison Arrow. You got to read it. Yeah. And finally I did.
So it's called Cupid's
Poison Arrow. And I'm 20% of the way in, and it's a book that is about Kareza. And Kareza is apparently, it's an older practice of 1, abstaining from orgasm for both men and women, and then 2, of practicing, I guess, of still engaging in intercourse, but slowing it down to the degree that you don't orgasm. And
no masturbation either.
I suppose you could, but you are not allowed to orgasm. You can just not orgasm. And the argument which it is made, I haven't gotten to the science part because it's written by, I believe, a husband and wife duo. Her half of the book is more anecdotal storytelling, and she says he's like the neuroscientist guy, and his half of the book is going to be that kind of stuff, I believe. And it's interesting. So it's classic one of those books that says all of the world's ails can be 6. You know what I mean? It's like, this is the solution. It's very passionate about, and I saw a relationship problem, and everything was good, and then they had ejaculatory sex, and then everything was bad. Yeah. So there's a lot of anecdotes like that. I think it probably oversteps, but it's an interesting idea, and it says that it starts from the presupposition that humans are not built to be long-term monogamous. That the honeymoon phase, which you've experienced, I've experienced, which can last anywhere from 6 months to 18 months plus, is hardwired in, and it is timed according to some of the first orgasms that you experience with a person, and of course prolonged contact. And that is intended, from this person's argument, to make you seek a new mate so as to diversify the gene pool that you would be creating with your future
So her argument
spouses.
is you stick around for 18 months because that's enough for the child to be born.
And for you to bond with the child and to care for the child.
And then you fall out of the honeymoon phase because now it's time for you to go reproduce with someone else.
Yes.
That's how she thinks we're wired.
Yes.
Okay.
And she makes no distinction so far between men and women, which I think is one potential problem from an Evo Psych idea, because I've been pretty well convinced that men and women have different sexual strategies when it comes to Evo psychology, but we can leave that for now.
Sure. So that stands for evolutionary psychology.
Yeah, sorry. And it's interesting in that it talks about how this basically gets in the middle of that process, and so you don't ever have the orgasm, and you stay in this lovey-dove, lovebird state forever while still being intimate with one another because you are having intercourse. And I'm going to give it a try. I'm going to give it a try for 3 weeks.
Isn't it too late for you, though? Because you've already ejaculated with your girlfriend?
So it says ideally you would start from scratch, but...
So have you told your girlfriend you guys got to break up so you can start with someone else?
It's over.
Sorry, I read a book.
The book says you just aren't going to work.
Honeymoon's over.
So it says 3 weeks, and it's a 2-week time span for you to reset, and then that last week for you to see. And of course, it has all these claims for you're going to be more vibrant, you're going to be more creative, you're going to be more in love, you're going to be kinder to everyone in the world.
And
so
just to be clear,
we'll see.
No orgasms ever for you for the next 3 weeks.
Ever for the next 3 weeks.
No masturbating either.
Ever for the next 3 weeks.
Well, I look forward to seeing you go crazy. This will be great. Can I say one thing that's interesting, because it could be a reason why relationship dynamics change? Your testosterone, if you don't orgasm, rises for 7 days, and then plummets.
Mm-hmm.
So by the end of 21 days of not orgasming, your testosterone will be markedly lower, according to the science that I looked into.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe that has a part to play.
Mm-hmm. I have no idea the complex hormonal interaction. One thing that I know for certain is that for much of history and even today, people manage their mood by timing orgasm. So you know the 7-day thing because that's often what fighters try to maximize for. Mm-hmm. So they wait 7 days prior to a fight. They do it their last time.
And then no sex.
And then they abstain. Now, some guys don't do this, but the real optimizers, they control. And other guys are like, no, I go in 2 on edge, 2 hours before a fight. Mm-hmm. They have a girlfriend or whatever. They have sex. And then they go in there and they manage their mood that way. But what I think is undeniably true is that it is a powerful lever for controlling your emotions, your mood, etc.
Sure.
So I'm not certain that the right answer is to abstain and never do it, but I believe that it's okay. We'll see. Like when I turn the steering wheel, this car is gonna go. It's gonna go hard left.
I did this experiment. I don't know if you remember. I did this experiment when I was like 26, 27. Yeah.
Okay.
I found it to be total hogwash. So I'm very curious to see what you think.
I think it's a lot like nutrition in that your mileage may vary based on your own backup.
Not to discourage you. I'm genuinely curious to see.
I don't expect, my hypothesis is that I will not notice a dramatic change, but I want to give it a shot given that it's 3 weeks.
I think you'll notice a dramatic change. I think everyone's going to look prettier to you in about 2 weeks when you haven't had an orgasm.
We'll see, but it does say that the reason they say 3 weeks is because it's an uphill battle for the first 2 weeks, and then you start to see the benefits. And so it says the last week is where you're actually going to feel happy of yourself.
I can't wait to everyone tune in 3 weeks from now.
Yeah.
It'll be a great report.
Yeah. So we'll find out. Tune in.
What are the odds you make
Christmas
it 3
time.
weeks? What are the odds that you just blow it?
50-50, I would say, realistically. Having announced this pulls us to 50-50. Prior to it was unlikely.
3 days from now, it's like, oh, my bad, guys.
So we'll see. And if it does...
you can't even toe the line, dude.
We'll see. I'm
just saying, you edged too close, you were going to blow 20 days of work.
Yes, you can make mistakes. You got to be careful.
Yeah.
So hilarious. That was related to the other thing that I did this week, which I told you yesterday. I mentioned I was hanging out. Don't know how it came up, but I saw a video about TikTok, and it scared me because it made me, holy cow, TikTok is this booming thing, and I know nothing about it. So I was like, I'm going to download TikTok. Downloaded it, and it was fascinating because I have been trying to pay closer awareness to my body. Closer attention to my body. And as I was on TikTok, I noticed my heart rate elevated. I got more uncomfortable and I started to stress out.
Why uncomfortable?
Download TikTok. Okay. It is like speed. It's Instagram and Facebook to the next level. Everything auto loads. All right. So one of the things that has made TikTok popular, at least according to this video, is that the algorithm, the AI that they have, it auto feeds you suggestions. So like your input into it is actually just how long you watch a video. And you can, of course, search and you can find things that way. But the way that the app is most often used is it just keeps giving you that hit over and over. And however long you hit that hit, and it's only 15-second videos, right? So it's shorter, faster dopamine loops. And there's a lot going on screen in terms of what you can like and the hashtags in the bottom corner. And it's constant. Within these 15-second videos, there's millions of cuts because what can you do in 15 seconds? You can't tell a story. And
does it burn you out quickly, though? Because I can sit and watch a 20-minute YouTube video. But I feel like if it were 15-second intervals, after 5 minutes, you'd just be like, well, that was 30 videos. I'm burned out.
I would burn out. And this is what I realized.
It would only be 20. That was bad mental math.
I would burn out. And my first thought was, oh, God, this is so bad. This technology is radically different than everything that is already out there. I need to not participate in this. And then I realized, were I 15 years younger, this would be the level of stimulation I was accustomed to. Mm-hmm. And this would be the level I could absorb this like I currently can absorb a Facebook feed or an Instagram feed. Mm-hmm. But if I were 60 and, I see my grandparents on a computer, they're like, oh, this is, they can't handle it, right? And it just made me realize there's this arms race of stimulation attention. And the human biology is designed in such a way that it responds to fast stimulus. So 50, 60, 70 years ago, TV comes out. It's like, whoa, there's this amazing thing to do. It's got 3 channels.
Yeah,
Like it was completely captivating.
Crushing it compared to a book.
Exactly. And then, hundreds of channels, so much happening. And then the internet comes and there's these YouTube videos and they're so quick. And then Vine at 6 seconds. And it's just gotten shorter and shorter and shorter dopamine loops to the point where I haven't really taken stock to measure how overstimulated my nervous system is. And it only occurred to me when I went on to TikTok, which was a level up from what I'm used to, that I'm probably running around with an insane amount of stress for an average human that could have lived 100 years ago. Like my neurophysiology is just constantly on edge. And it made me decide to do a dopamine diet, which I kind of mentioned to you.
Yeah. All right.
Which
so what? Define it.
So this is the one reason that I was going to do the Carezza stuff, because that's a dopamine loop. But I've started writing down all the places that I go compulsively for that dopamine hit. And for those of you who don't know, I think most people know this isn't completely novel. Well, it's not novel at all.
Nothing I'm saying is my own idea.
It's groundbreaking. You have a number of major chemicals in your brain. There's the big 4: dopamine, serotonin, endorphin, and oxytocin. Dopamine is the reward system. So it's the one that gamblers get. It's the one that you get when the person that you like texts you back. And it's what all of these major companies exploit with the pop-ups on your phone, because you want that next dopamine hit of the like or whatever it is. And it motivates you towards goals, but it can be exploited to create addictive patterns of behavior. So I wrote down all the places that I notice myself go when I sit still. Where do I go? And the list is long. So, it's the Reddit. It's of course all the things that I've already mostly cut out, which is the Facebook, Instagrams, Twitters, whatever. But a big one for me is business analytics. So like, how did this podcast do? Let me check that 50 times a day. Yeah. How many sales have we made? So I've listed all that, and then I've said I can't do those. And then this morning, what happened was I went to like buy new credit cards. I started playing the points game. I was like, oh, I need a new credit card that has a points bonus when you sign up. And I've been trying to remain aware of all of these places. It's incredible, man. Yeah. I have a hard dopamine addiction.
Yeah, I've seen that and I feel like it's a little bit like the addiction ladder we talk about. It's like, listen, you might be codependent and addicted to your boyfriend or girlfriend. It's better than a heroin addiction. And so there's layers to this, right? So I recently, like I said, I got rid of Reddit and Instagram. And I've realized that now if I don't have anything to do, I check my business email.
Yeah.
That's where I go.
Me too.
Because it's still easier to go, I'll solve a business problem. I look for anything that's quick. If it's long, I'll go, save that for the laptop. Can I do it in 5 minutes? Great. Because then I get to feel like I did something.
Yeah.
So I'm noticing that as well, that it kind of ratchets down.
Yeah. So if you look and you time me, it would be generous to say that my dopamine addiction demands a hit every 60 seconds. That would be generous.
To check your phone?
To check my phone, look at a stat, interact with someone. I mean, really, how many people can sit still for 60 seconds? Most people can't do that 10 minutes of meditation. I get bored is the word that they use to describe the stress that they feel inside when they don't have stimulus. And I realize I'm a hardcore dopamine addict. I'm jonesing. And it makes me so easy to exploit when it comes to spending time on things that don't contribute to my happiness but feed my addiction. So I'm trying to cut back on that. I recognize that like every diet, I'm still going to be having dopamine experiences, but I'm going to try to control those and make them related to reading, interacting with friends and family, playing with my dog, taking a walk.
If I open your phone, am I going to just see 5 apps now? Everything else is gone?
No. So for me, the big problem is the computer. And I have to come up with, and this is a great question because my willpower alone is not going to stop this.
Yeah, this is James. James Clear is a friend of ours, and I love his stuff. And he is constantly telling people you don't accomplish change with willpower. He's all about habits and especially fitness stuff. So he talks about if you want to go for a run, the number one thing you can do is put your shoes by your bed. There's like these little things. You want to drink more water. The number one thing you can do is have water in front of your face.
Yeah.
So yeah, for you, the question is what environmental changes can you make?
Yeah.
Because just deciding not to check your phone is the hardest way to go about it.
So what I've done is I just put my phone on a different counter and I don't leave my bed.
It is hilarious. It is funny because we've been working together for a long time and we both work from home. I have this standing desk, this hilarious setup with an ergonomic keyboard that's angled, and then I come into your room and you lay in your bed just typing like
I'm
this.
the hunchback of Notre Dame.
You're the genius savant for sure of the two of us.
So I appreciate that, but I don't know that contributes to it.
No, it's like how Einstein couldn't tie his shoes. That's you.
So I am trying to cut all of these things out. The phone for me is a partial issue, but what it is that there's these places that are dual purpose. I can be doing things that I approve of on my computer, but it's also very easy for me to slip into the other things. And so I'm downloading blockers and those sorts of things, and Stay Focused, which is an app that allows you to set time limits, which I'm just going to set at 0 because then I notice at midnight when it resets and I'm awake, I'm like, quick!
Yeah. Like, no, 0 versus 1 is massive.
Yeah.
0 versus 1 is massive.
So, and I'm going to try to do it I'm going to throw everything at it, but in the similar 3-week span.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be perfect, but you just mentioned our friend got back from a 5-day silent meditation retreat, had great things to say about it, right?
He loved it. He said it was euphoric.
I think I would love it too, and I think it's amazing, and I want to do it. But I often see the problem with the programs that you've gone to, I've gone to, that he's gone to, is that integrating what is so possible in that new environment back into your life with all of the other temptations, you have a drop off of 95+% of what you originally had when you come back to your real life. And so I'm going to start in my real life, and I'm totally down to do that retreat, but that's my goal, is to not just have a euphoric experience, which I've had at some of these different types of programs, psychedelic and otherwise.
No, I think the phone thing's a good idea. I don't know how to do it on your computer, but I think what's in front of your face is the biggest contributor to what you do or don't do. So again, shout out James Clear. He says, if you are trying to stop eating junk food, just put it in your garage and you can still get it. You're still allowed to have it. But instead of going to the fridge and opening the fridge and getting it, you have to go out into your garage. And he recommends a high shelf where you have to...
Yeah.
And he's like, you'll just stop because you don't want it that badly. For me, I've noticed with the dating apps, I was like super obsessed with dating at one point. I didn't even delete them. I just put them into a folder in a place where it's kind of hard to get to and I don't see them. And I'll just forget for like 2 weeks to even try to set up a date because it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. So yeah, there's these little ways that you can help yourself.
So this is the tricky thing, is that solving any particular dopamine addiction for me is quite easy. And you just do that. You delete the app, you do this. Addressing the dopamine cycle as a whole is incredibly hard.
Yeah, but you can scale it back. I mean, TikTok versus Instagram versus a nature documentary. They're all visual stimulus, but there's a level.
Yes.
There's levels to this game.
Well, of course. And what I'm finding is I'll fill it with anything. I told you, I'll go to the email again. I'll do work email. You know what I mean? I'll get consumed with work all the time.
As your business partner, I'm okay with this.
I started getting new credit cards.
Less okay with this.
I was just researching. I need this. You know, I all of a sudden need these 50,000 points, which is a terrible use of time. And it's going to be tricky. But it's also incredible how much time there is in a day. When you do not feed these cycles, you find yourself sitting there praying for tiredness. You're just like,
now you go to the bathroom in 2 minutes instead of sitting down to take a poop, and 20 minutes later going, oh my God, what did I just do on my phone?
Yeah. I wait for night and I'm like, can I please be tired so I can get to tomorrow? Because it's so hard. But I do believe that these cycles will end hopefully within that 2-week span. I think is around the dopamine reset phase, people say.
Does this mean no video games? Because that's a pretty big dopamine hit.
No, I think I am going to allow it. And I recognize that will probably be a huge fallback on this dopamine cycle. And maybe one day I'll go full Vipassana monk, 10 days, silence, nothing. But
what if it was like the orgasm thing? You're allowed to play, but you're not allowed to win.
You're not allowed to get that loop.
You have to lose. I bet you'd stop playing.
I'm going to assess each game that I play and see what kind of role it plays in my life with regards to addiction. Right now, there's none that I'm hyper addicted to. That's been different in the past than I've mentioned on the podcast. But the ones that I play right now, like Super Smash Bros., I'll play for a half an hour with my brother online and then stop quite comfortably.
What are the good things in your life that are not dopamine addiction?
There's so many. But I never do any of them. This is the problem. What are they? Yeah. The best things, I wrote them all down. The best things don't call to me. I don't ever want to do them. So let's see. These are just some of the ones that I'd written. Exercise. I'm allowed to do that. Reading. I put an asterisk on this one. Video games.
Questionable.
Walks in the sun, playing guitar, singing, piano, escape rooms, foam rolling, stretching, free writing, sleeping, breath work, friends calling, and I don't want this one to become my new dopamine thing. Oh, I'm bored, I'll call a friend. But calling old friends is another thing that I'm allowed to do. So we shall see. It's going to be an interesting little thing, but it's contributing to my hypothesis, which is coming from a number of different books, that one of the big issues is that we've all grown accustomed to having a hyper overstimulated nervous system, such that when we go to Vipassana retreats and come back, it's like, what is this world that I've stepped into? This is insanity, but it's just normal. And every generation, honestly, it's getting worse. I told you, I watched some of this kids' content on YouTube last week. I look at TikTok. Kids don't stand a chance against the gamification of their attention as conducted by these big tech companies. It really makes...
Well, some companies do use it for good, I would say. Like
Sure.
the Peloton bike. Gamifying workouts. I think that's an awesome use of that, because it takes something that's good for you that most people don't want to do, and it mixes in dopamine hits. It makes you want to get on the Peloton and get the high score and do this and that. And you also can't bike forever because your body will just stop. So you can only Peloton for like an hour. So there are companies using these weaknesses of the human psyche to hack you into bettering yourself. They're just...
We hope to do that. That's what we hope to do with our channel is to capture attention, direct it towards something that ultimately
use quick cuts and visuals of cool things from movies to make people's lives better. Yeah. So it's not all bad, I guess. But.
So here's what's becoming increasingly hard, and maybe I'm just an old man now and I don't see that everything's going to be okay. But when I'm on TikTok, I even went to Gary Vee because I knew he'd be there and I knew that he'd be talking about business content. I was like, what's popular from Gary Vee? And they're these mindless videos, man. They're mindless. I believe that Gary Vee has good advice to give. If you watch his hour-long interviews on the Gary Vee show, some of them are quite good. The clips that are most popular are mindless.
Like what? Just work harder, hustle more?
He's sitting on a plane going, what's the Snapchat filter for baby? Get me that baby filter. And every word he says pops up in real time. Get me that baby filter. What's
interesting? So he's actually not even teaching people on TikTok.
I mean,
he's just building an audience.
There's one where he goes, you just got to stick to it. And I think this is the right advice for a lot of 20-year-olds. You got to be patient, man. You got to do this. You got to stick. But it's like he's saying be patient on a platform that has a cut. The conversation is ripped in half 7 times. It's like the medium becomes the message at that point. You can't tell someone to be patient on TikTok. It doesn't work. You need to tell them to be patient at a retreat or something like that. So I wonder, without changing, and I know that Instagram opened up videos another minute, maybe attention spans on that will open up, or maybe it'll just disappear. I don't know how many positive things you can add to someone's life other than a chuckle in 15 seconds. I really think the answer is few and far between, especially when it's just on top of something else.
Sure.
So I'm anti, I'm negative, I'm a curmudgeonly old man at this point. I'm going to send this in a quote because we're actually going to start sending these emails, but I came across a video on Charles Bukowski, who is an author who you might not know, but he's got, let me read this quote to you.
What's he famous for? What did he write?
You wouldn't heard of it. I actually read one of his books called Post Office. He's got Ham on Rye. He was a really interesting guy. I'll tell you a little bit about him. He was abused as a kid and his whole life, like pretty bad. So his whole life is a reaction to that. He's a heavy alcoholic. He worked at the post office for many years. He's a really smart guy. He was writing while he was at the post office for these 20 years and wrote hundreds of short stories, but never broke through until age 50. So like 50 years of hard living, and he made me think of you when I read his book because he's at the post office and he constantly just doesn't show up for work, tells the supervisor to go F off, and they write him a slip and he takes in the pocket in front of the supervisor, he throws it away. He just doesn't care. And I was like, this is such a refreshing character to connect with because we care so much. And he just, what are you going to do? You know, he's already at the post office. He doesn't want to be there. The people that he works with are pains. But he's got a quote. I won't read you the whole thing. If you want the whole quote, join our email list on our website. But he talks about not trying. On his tombstone, and I learned this from the video, it's the epitaph is "Don't try." And then I found this quote from him where he talks about writing, and he says, whatever it is for you is already there. Just get out of the way, and if it's not there, wait for it to show up. Don't try. Don't work. It's there. And I thought that was really interesting because this guy just wrote and wrote and wrote. And when I was comparing myself to him...
Is he saying he tried too hard?
No, he's saying he couldn't not write. he wasn't trying to get famous. He couldn't not write. And of course, he brought his stuff to publishers and tried, but writing for him was his vocation, in the sense that it was just like, he knew that that's what he was there to do. It came through him. And I experienced that earlier in my life. I mean, I wrote with no audience. I had hundreds of pieces, and I don't anymore. Everything that I create is to be published. And I had to slow down and be like, I lost my vocation in a desire to be successful. And quite frankly, as a reaction to the success that we've had, the writing, the videos became for other people as opposed to a pure expression of whatever it is that I was thinking, feeling, or doing at the time. And I want to get back to that. Like I want to get back to things coming through me. And of course, this is a really nice way to have the spontaneity while sharing with an audience, this podcast. But I realize that I have let our success get in the way of vocation. And ultimately, I think what makes me the happiest is a combination of the two. You know what I mean? Like,
well, it depends what your goal is, right? Because certainly I've never heard of this guy. He's not the most successful author. His stuff wasn't read by the most people. So it depends what your goal is. And perhaps if your goal is to be happy, he's even less happy than someone who never even published their writing. So I would not say it's a bad quote. I would just question, what's your North Star? You know? Because this guy could have ended up just being a mailman who never published his stuff. And I don't know that that's what people are solving for necessarily.
Yeah, so for him, I wouldn't want to live his life. I mean, like I said, he was abused, was a ridiculous alcoholic. You've heard some of his quotes. I think his quote is, that might be Hunter S. Thompson. He's one of those guys that just lived hard. You know what I mean? Like, he's a hard-living dude. And he actually did become, as far as 20th century authors, quite famous for 20th century authors. But I want vocation at this point in my life.
No, I guess all I would say is something we've said on the podcast before, which is take advice from people who you want to be like, and don't take advice from people who aren't living the life you want, right? So don't take career advice from your boss unless you want to have your boss's job and your boss's life. And the second thing is to find your North Star before you do anything. So when you're writing, do you want to write because it's pure joy and you don't care if anyone sees it? Do you want to write because it's joy but make a little bit of money? Do you want to write because your goal is to get the most people to see your writing? That's going to decide your action steps and who you model. Yeah. So that's all I would say about this guy.
Totally. And for me, at this point, I am going to try to not make the entirety of my life, because so much of my creative output has been, and we've talked about how our creative process has shifted from video first, what should we call this title, to we literally brainstorm the titles that we're going to do and which can we make a good video for.
Yeah, and it makes, dude, you have a 3.5 million subscriber YouTube channel and you're successful and you're 32. Might make sense for you to follow this guy's advice. I'm just saying, if I'm watching this and I'm 19 or I'm 25 or I'm 40 and I don't like my job and I haven't started something yet, maybe I would follow the advice of someone who I wanted to be like.
Sure.
That's all I'm saying.
Phases for everything. And I don't think there is a right answer. I do think that for many people, it's going to be a balancing act of an attention when you're creating any sort of product or art, attention towards the audience and other people in the marketplace, and recalling that attention to yourself to be like, what am I inspired to create? And some people can be, you can be on the too far to either side for your given goal.
Yeah. And also you can take advice from people for certain areas and not others. So Tim Ferriss is the guy I went to for business advice because I liked his results. He said he wasn't working very much. He was incredibly successful. I was like, okay, cool. But that doesn't mean you have to take his dating advice, his fitness advice, his mental health advice as well. You can just go, Tim Ferriss is going to be the guy I try to model for business, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is going to be the guy I try to model for fitness, and the Dalai Lama will be the guy I try to model for mental health. And so you can look for the Dalai Lama's meditation practice. You don't have to go, oh, I want to have Logan Paul's body, so I'm going to follow his fitness advice and his meditation advice. Like, no, you don't have to do that. You can actually try to pick different people for different things. So that's no knock on him or the quote, which I don't even know the full quote until I'll see your email when it comes out. But just saying, for people, that can be good advice for you based on where you are in life. And for them, the best advice might be something else.
Sure. Do what speaks to you. This is what calls to me right now. I'm going to try to stop trying. and I suspect.
Yeah. And you, I think, want to end up being a 50-year-old alcoholic, and not everyone wants that.
Yeah. That's where I'm headed. So here's another interesting one. YouTube. Oh boy. So, as you see the update to the harassment, hate speech stuff.
Yeah, a little bit, briefly.
So they've taken action. They've taken down.
Well, hold on. So start at the beginning for people who don't know. So what's the new policy?
So YouTube, ever since the Carlos Maza, Steven Crowder thing, has been on the back foot a little bit with regards to harassment because they kind of caught it on both sides. From the people who were in the camp of Carlos Maza, they were saying that Steven Crowder was being derogatory towards a protected group, in this case homosexuals, and that he should be completely kicked off the platform, not just demonetized or lower monetization. And the people who were more on the Steven Crowder side said, you need to be able to insult people. Free speech is free speech, and insults fall under free speech. And you should be able to insult people pretty evenly across, whether you're short, tall, dumb, gay, color, whatever. You should be able to
heterosexual.
insult. You should be able to insult people legally and within this platform, even if it's not the nicest thing that your mom would tell you to do.
Mm-hmm.
So those were broadly the two camps, and YouTube didn't please anybody originally, but has been trying to, I think, please more the people who want more protection on YouTube. So they made a more robust harassment policy and said no one, including government officials and famous people, is now exempt from this. That was what they stated, which we'll come back later.
Sorry, so you can no longer make jokes against Trump?
No, they were even saying famous people shouldn't be. I think it was unclear in the wording, but the way that I understood it was you shouldn't be able to do it about Trump or about these other people. But I also understand that later they said that there's a higher bar for a public official in terms of criticism. But you're not supposed to criticize their look, their race, their gender, their gender orientation, their sexuality, whatever, their religion. There's a whole bunch of categories that you can look up. And in any event, what has happened is that they've started now taking down videos. So if you know iDubbbz, do you know him? Mm-hmm. He does Content Cop. This is one of the bigger creators on YouTube. And back in the day of like high drama, he had this Content Cop where he would go and take other massive creators and combo roast them, make fair critiques, and be just mean. Like there's this one guy, Leafy, who he made critiques of why he was doing bad things, but also made fun of his chin and how he hides his chin and he looks terrible, and he was very mean and critical in his commentary. They took the video down, over 10 million views. They did this with another video of somebody who made this critical thing of H3H3. It had over 1 million views. And at one scene, it was this very comic, like it was called The Death of H3H3, and he like snuck up on him with a knife. Now, I don't think he really threatened violence or something.
Wait. Why did that one
you'll have to watch the video. I don't know. But he had these weird
wouldn't that mean
scenes.
that all of H3's videos have to come down?
No.
Aren't all of H3's videos being mean to someone?
It's not just being mean.
Logan
so
Paul
it has to be about their look or something. It's weird. And the application of it, you're allowed to be mean, but you can't be mean based on these categories.
Got it. Well, but H3's a white heterosexual male.
But you can't be mean based on these categories. Meaning if I say that you're dumb, I actually looked, IQ is not, I think I'm allowed to tease someone for their IQ.
Yeah.
Right?
We really screw that one up, I think. That seems like the worst hand. If what we're worried about is being dealt an unfair hand, right? Mm-hmm. Having to fight uphill because I'm a lesbian woman, it's harder for me in the world because there's prejudice. I'd much rather be a high IQ lesbian woman than a really low IQ anyone. Mm-hmm. So it seems like that's the worst hand to get dealt. But we just don't protect those people at all.
So at least not in the current thing, because they're not at least advocating. They haven't organized at this point, and they're not advocating. But on the current list, I checked, IQ intelligence is not listed.
Seems weird.
So you are allowed to say you're stupid, you're this, you're that. But what you can't say is a racial slur. What you can't say is...
Can you be nondescript? Just say ugly?
This is where they get it. They get into like look at one point is what
protected.
No, it's not a protected category, but they've started taking things down for being malicious and mean and teasing looks. It's this weird thing where if you look at their age is one of the things. So if you look at how you would actually apply these rules that they have and say, okay, you're not allowed to exclude or say people should be separated based on these following things. I could imagine an ESPN person saying that, Vince Carter's washed up. No 42-year-old should be in this league anymore. And it's like, that is age discrimination there, right? Like, do we have to take that down now?
Yeah.
Which ignores, there's a number of issues. One, it seemed to indicate that you're not allowed, it was about superiority part of it, which is to say that you can't say that anyone is superior based on any of these categories. And certainly I think that we can agree that with regards to age, depending on your goal, there's going to be areas in which you are superior to someone of a different age on average.
Sure, we'll just say athleticism. There's an athletic prime, and
Sure.
it's not 65.
I mean, we all say that 18-year-olds and 16-year-olds don't have the cognitive capacity to make a decision, right? That is to put a 25-year-old in a superior position to a 16-year-old when it comes to decision making.
Like voting.
Like voting, like whether it's rape or statutory rape, like all of these things we agree upon in a lot of ways. We say that children are cognitively inferior to adults. That's why we get to tell them what to do.
The government says that.
Yes, and we all can reiterate that and could say that in a video. But age is a protected class, and you're not supposed to say that anyone's inferior based on it. And you were saying physicality on the other side of age. You could go, I think that the most 25-year-olds are going to be athletically superior than most 80-year-olds. And I think we would all agree with that, but you can't say it.
It's going to be interesting. This is just YouTube, though.
Well, sorry. You can say that. YouTube's policy is not going to be evenly applied. This is the biggest problem.
Yeah.
So
because Trump is going to roast Bernie Sanders for his age.
And Trump gets roasted every night by Stephen Colbert, Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel. None of their videos have been taken down. There's a video where Stormy Daniels and Jimmy Kimmel get together with a cake and they talk about how small Donald Trump's penis is. Now,
is that a protected class?
It's weird because it's in gender and it's in these things. So maybe not, but I'm sure that you could pull up a whole list of things where they make jokes about him being white or whatever. And they've already started taking down videos that berated people maliciously about their look, right? This Leafy video being an example of one of them. Trump gets berated for his look all the time by these mainstream personalities. Nothing's going to happen. It's absurd. And this is the kicker. The other thing that they're doing is they're raising up authoritative content. One of the problems is that people were getting into these, New York Times wrote this article, we covered it, these black holes of YouTube where you would watch one video of Ben Shapiro and then you might watch too many videos from Steven Crowder and you could go alt-right at that point. Or you could have an opinion that wasn't held by Jimmy Kimmel, right? Yeah. God forbid. Now what they're going to do is, whether or not the algorithm would have served it to you, whether it's like they're going to make sure that authoritative sources like ABC, CNN, Fox News.
How does charisma on command get bucketed as an authoritative source?
It doesn't. Here's what it is. All these mainstream media sources are now going to be pushed down your throat. They already are. If you log into YouTube, unsubscribe, the whole homepage is going to be covered in Jimmy Fallon, Jimmy Kimmel, and Stephen Colbert, and ESPN.
ESPN's hilarious, dude. They need about 7 views to be trending. PewDiePie needs 100 million, and he won't get it.
And they're going to push these authoritative...
Do they get money from those guys?
Yeah, of course they do. They get the same ad rev splits.
No, sorry. Why do they care? Why does YouTube want to make ABC more popular than H3H3?
So we'll have to think about this. Now, the answer, of course, has to be money, but you and I will have to sit down and figure out how that makes them.
Why do they care about
I think there's a greater...
pleasing authority?
I think it's because there's greater institutional control over Jimmy Kimmel. Jimmy Kimmel cannot get up there and say whatever he wants. iDubbbz can. And if 30 million people watch iDubbbz and he can say whatever he wants.
You actually think it's what's the word? You think that it's a genuine desire to protect viewers?
I think it's beyond... No. I think the systemic control is beyond even what the thought processes of the people at the top of YouTube. And it's a reaction against change. And I would say power on YouTube was becoming disseminated to these people who were one-man teams on occasion. They could just completely control dialogue.
PewDiePie, Brad, and Brad.
Right? And that... There was a huge, New York Times wrote a bunch of articles, demonized it, got public opinion against it, right? Joe Rogan he's dark web all of a sudden.
Yeah, but why would YouTube care?
Because, so New York Times writes an article, their fan base gets uproarious. They cause all this stir. Now YouTube gets all this pressure. It gets amplified in the New York Times. They're just playing it back to them over and over again. And they react to these powerful people in these positions, which would have been a few smaller voices complaining, but it was a pet project of the New York Times and other...
Yeah, but I could imagine some CEO or some founder just being like, I guess it's because they're owned by Google. Because if this were an independently owned startup, you could imagine some founder just going, you guys.
Yeah. And somebody
how about this? I'm going to prioritize creators.
Yeah.
Because screw you.
Yeah.
Like there doesn't have to be kowtowing to the New York Times.
Yes, but as things get bigger and they get more inputs from a variety of people, they become public entities, they are more easily controlled by traditional levers of power. And public opinion, as mobilized by the New York Times or whatever, just pick your other news outlet, it could be any of them.
Yeah.
Now has a tremendous influence on the direction that YouTube takes.
Interesting.
So, yeah, they're going to be raising up authoritative content. Now, who does that appease? You know what I mean? Nobody on the platform wants that. Nobody with a camera and a set in their own house wants that. Only the people that were writing these terrible articles are going to find that to be a good thing. Oh, thank God there's going to be more Fox News and CNN. Like, that's exactly what we were missing out on.
I would like to go to YouTube to escape
We got to get out of that. Yeah, and now it's becoming this thing. So I need a little bit more time to digest this and step back and see the bigger picture. And
we need to become the authoritative content, dude.
But here's the thing. We talked about 1984. You become the man at the end. He is sitting in the cafe. This was a discussion. And whether it's him or a replacement, after they do the whole thing and it's unclear whether or not he died, the narrator at the end of 1984, spoiler alert, is a high up in the party and is sitting in a cafe and is part of the system. And this is what happens. Like, what's her name? Lily Singh, who is a YouTube creator, right? Now she's got her own TV show with this giant staff and she's owned by these networks. And like, she's going to participate in all of this. In order to get that kind of clout, you have to sell the ability to speak freely or even think freely. These people actually are, I think, speaking freely. They just can't think freely in the first place. There was enough organizational gate checks to keep anyone with a really dissenting opinion out of those positions in the first place. But if you did watch any of the late night hosts just go off and be like, mainstream, they'd be fired.
Yeah.
We're just kowtowing to the advertisers. It's a consumer system. Yeah, they'd be done. That'd be the end of it. So I need more time to really think through all of the implications, but I thought that it was disturbing and fascinating and all those sorts of things.
Nice.
So
sorry about that F-bomb too. I'm making your life a little harder with the editing.
No, man. See, let's just be you, right? Forget being mainstream
don't cut
media
it.
friendly.
Just bleep it.
So I had TikTok, I had the YouTube thing, the Bukowski. Oh, I have one other or two other things. Did you have stuff that you wanted to bring up, or did you just come in literally empty?
I got some. Listen, I was scrounging. I'll be honest. I actually checked the news multiple days in a row, and I saw a lot of the stuff we've already talked about. A lot of Trump impeachment, a lot of protests in foreign countries. I was like, man, the news is constantly high stakes, but it's always the same. So I didn't have a lot of new stuff. The one thing I thought was funny, actually there's two things, but if Conor McGregor beats Cowboy Cerrone, he gets the next title shot.
That's amazing.
Which I thought was just a fascinating look into how money runs the world.
Yeah.
So if people who don't know, Conor McGregor went on an incredible run up to beating Jose Aldo. Never seen before. Amazing athlete. He's 2-2 since. And the guy he's fighting has lost his last two fights.
Yeah.
So if this weren't Conor McGregor, this would get you the right to fight like a
more
top
people.
10 fighter. Yeah.
Two more people.
And Dana White, no one can stop Dana White from doing what he wants. He said if Conor wins, he gets the next title fight.
But that's what the fans want.
Yeah, it's just not a sport at that point.
Yeah.
And so that's the interesting thing. It's like it's just becoming closer to WWE than it is to a real sport, because you would like to think that the best athlete is the one who gets the chance to fight for the title, but it's not. So that was my one takeaway. But then after I had that thought, I thought, are sports actually pure? Because there's been a lot of stuff about the NBA being rigged. And so it's just interesting because I think a lot of people, when they hear what I just said 3 seconds ago, they go, yeah, it's not a sport. Sports are pure. And that's what I think. Sports are the paradigm of pure competition, except for when the Lakers play the Kings in 2002 and the refs completely rig it. So it's just interesting to me, as I get older, you see more and more areas where just money really does sneak in and corrupt everything.
Yeah, I think that you can usually count on that to be the case. It's tough. I mean, how do you stop corruption? Transparency. Have a lot of people with their hand on something, so one person can't do it. But when you have it, so it's like,
well, Phil Jackson said, why do the NBA refs work for the NBA? Why aren't they a separate organization where the pay is graded on officiating well, and the NBA doesn't get to pick who refs what games?
Yeah.
Then the officials just send them, hey, it's these three. The NBA gets to pick who refs. There's some strategy to that. You know what I mean?
You create a breeding ground for corruption when you give one person gatekeeping power, like yes, no power, and then you put a huge incentive, financial or otherwise, on them to come down in a particular direction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, oh yeah, like you want to be the number one ref? Well, maybe the Lakers should win.
Dude, what they do, it's funny. They don't bribe them. They don't do anything. They just hold briefings beforehand.
Mm-hmm.
So Steph Curry had never fouled out in an NBA game for the entire season that they were 73-9. And then before Game 6, Game 5, Draymond Green gets ejected, right? So he doesn't get to play.
So let's slow down just a minute. So this is Lakers versus...
No, Lakers Kings is just...
Sorry. This is Golden State versus Thunder,
Warriors,
right?
versus the Cleveland Cavaliers.
Versus the Cavs.
In the finals.
Okay, this is the Cavs.
So Warriors, Cleveland Cavaliers, finals. The Warriors go up 3-1. If they win the next game, it's over. That means 5 finals games. That means 5 games of revenue generation.
And there could be
7.
And the 7th is the biggest generating game.
And these are 8-figure games. This is $40 million on the line, right? So Draymond Green does something that he has done multiple times in the past, but gets ejected for
Draymond
Game 5.
is on the winning team at this point.
He's on the Warriors.
I'm slowing it down.
No, I respect that.
Yeah.
So he's on the Golden State Warriors. He's gone. So then they lose Game 5.
So they take one of the star players out.
So now it's 3-2. So we had a Game 6, which is another $40 million of revenue for everyone involved. Steph Curry is the best player on the team that's winning. He has never fouled out. And they hold a meeting with the refs where they show a bunch of plays and say, hey, we want this called stricter. And it's Steph Curry doing something that every player does. Because if you called every foul in the NBA, you'd never have a play. Yeah. That's the tough part about the NBA. And so for the first time in the entire season, Steph Curry fouls out. And the last foul is when LeBron James commits a charge on him, which is where LeBron James just runs into him. But they miscall it as a foul on Curry, and Curry fouls out for the first time. So now it's 3-3, and we get our Game 7. And the most money possible is made.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought it was fascinating.
And then who wins it there? We don't care.
They don't care. Yeah. But I just thought it was fascinating because at first I was disappointed in the UFC because how dare they be like the WWE instead of like a pure sport. And then I realized there are no pure sports, or at least the NBA is not pure. I don't know enough about the NFL.
You could just create, that system is very easy to create where it's, a handful of people with a massive financial incentive, or at least pressure from somebody who has a massive financial incentive.
No, the refs work for the NBA.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Phil Jackson said the solution, and then he said, but they'll never, ever do that, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Yeah, because that might have lost him $80 million that year, which is not going to do that.
So Conor McGregor, title shot. Keep your eye out. He has to just beat the 0-2 Cowboy Cerrone.
Yeah, here's a good ethical question for you. Not totally related, but segue. So we had a potential sponsor reach out, and I'll say it was Raycon. And I listened to their headphones, and I did not like them. And this is my personal opinion. I thought that they were not good quality. And I would have loved if they were good quality because we're looking for a sponsor.
Yep.
And so I said, appreciate it, no thanks. That's all good. And then I'm on YouTube, and everybody's repping Raycons. And they're talking about how good they are and this, that, and the other thing. And while I think it is entirely possible that some, if not all of those people just have a different opinion than me, or maybe I got a faulty pair of Raycons, I also think it's entirely possible
that AirPods are better. But
some of them are better. Some of them thought that AirPods were better, which, by the way, cost the same amount of money. They're $80 a pop each, and took it anyway. Now, we've done sponsorships that have reflected, and we're like, man, like we did a GoDaddy one.
We had to learn our lesson. We learned our lesson.
And so I don't.
We have a new philosophy on sponsors.
Yeah. And I don't mean to say that anybody is evil for doing this, but I wanted...
Certainly not whoever repped GoDaddy that one time. I'm sorry.
I'm not saying that anybody's evil, and I understand. But I was wondering, and I guess this would be a better conversation outside of this, Justin, if you want to chime in. I'm super curious. When you see an influencer or reading a sponsorship, what do you think that the ethics of that are? Do you think that it's okay for them to be just an actor who reads a script that they don't agree with? Should they like the product? Like, what level of actual personal endorsement does that person need to have to ethically be comfortable repping something?
Well, in my head, I think they should believe in the product they're repping. But I mean, just when I watch a video and I see an influencer, repping it, whether it's Instagram or YouTube or whatever, I just assume like they got to eat,
And so do you, from an ethical standpoint, like forgive repping of stuff that somebody's just like, whatever, I don't really like that?
Yeah, if a company reached out to me and was like, hey, if you drop this post or whatever on IG, we'll give you like a couple thousand.
Yeah.
Then I'd be like, okay.
Whatever. Yeah.
Well, I think the big thing to me, it comes down to what you say. And I think that's where us and the sponsors have a bit of a lack of overlap. That's why we can't work with many people. But if Rubik's Cubes, which I feel totally neutral on, said, hey, I want you to do a sponsorship for Rubik's Cubes. You don't have to say that you like them. You don't have to say that you use them. You just have to say what they are.
Yeah.
I could do that. This is a Rubik's Cube. It's a game. Here's how it works.
Yeah.
But the thing is, when they want you to say that it's amazing, that's where the friction comes in, because that's not how I feel.
Well, even so take these Raycons, which my reaction when I listened to them was, these are worse than AirPods. They are the same price for a worse product. Now, the one thing that I hear people say is, oh, they're flat and I can listen on my pillow. And I go, fair enough. AirPods do stick out a little bit. That might be a use case for these. And maybe I had bad ones. Maybe these people had a different experience. Maybe I'm just a weird audiophile, which is not the case. Yeah. There's 100, but there's a lot of reasons. I wasn't neutral. I was like, no, I think there's a better product at this price point. Unfortunately, Apple won't sign up to sign. So I'm curious, do you think if some company reached out to you, let's say that there's one that you would absolutely do, which is like, oh my God, I use that product. I like it. I tell my friends all the time. Then there's the middle, which I think you would do, which is like, I don't really feel strongly. And I'm not trying to catch you here, but I'm just trying to get a sense for people. Let's say it was a product like that you didn't like, that you knew that there was a competitor that you liked more. How would you feel about that? Or somebody, not you doing that, maybe even somebody else. Would you hold that against them?
Somebody's doing a Qdoba sponsorship, but they eat Chipotle every day.
Yeah, and they
Is that unethical?
They dislike Qdoba compared to Chipotle.
I personally don't like the breach of integrity, but I think that if somebody else were to take it, I 100% would not blame them.
Got it. So you would understand.
Yeah, for sure.
Interesting. And I was just curious with some of the reactions on YouTube, and it seems that that's what the audience feels like, is, I get it. You got to eat. And some of the podcasts I've been listening to, literally when they do sponsorship reads, they read, this is a product that does.
Yeah.
It's like, and I don't know the answer. I know the answer for us and myself, but I was wondering to the degree to which I should amend or judge or how people perceive these things. For me, it's a recommendation coming from me.
Yeah, that's why we have one sponsor.
Yeah.
We say no to everyone else.
Yeah. Well, we had a couple, and then we had Simple Habit. And
Yeah,
gone.
Simple Habit stopped their
Sponsorship.
influencer marketing.
Yeah. Audible's going to do the podcast?
We didn't say that. I'm talking to Audible about doing the podcast.
Don't sign up for them until they do. No, I like Audible. You can sign up for Audible if you go to audible.com.
We're working on it.
Charisma.
Don't get excited about the rate.
Yeah.
Not a lot.
That's okay.
But we're in talks.
Yeah, so I was mostly curious what not you and I, because you and I have spent a lot of time thinking of it. So when you see it, do you assume that the person who is reading about it is actually into it? Or do you just... Okay.
Never. I never assume they're into it.
Okay. Got it. So you think that this person has, and you know a little bit about the industry. You're like, that person got a paycheck. They're not super in it. What if they're really enthusiastic about it? Does that'll convince you, I imagine, right?
I guess it depends on the product too. I mean, Raycon, I know Ray J, right? He's like the one behind it, and I know that. I mean, I would assume that, like, was he the one who did the game consoles?
No. That was, I think, Soulja Boy.
All right, well, just
this
the
is not a resold Game Boy or whatever.
Okay,
because
I don't know. It's just like, I don't know. It's like Beats by Dre, you know. It's like I more think it's like the name behind the company and whatever.
Sure.
I just assume the product is like, you know, mediocre,
Got it.
Okay at best
compared to the other things. Sure. Okay.
We're not saying about Beats by Dre because I've never used them.
I've never used them.
I don't have an opinion on them.
Don't have an opinion. Interesting. That's all. I was curious.
I got a random one.
Yeah.
Do you know Tesla has a dog mode?
No.
Tesla has a mode. So you can't leave a dog in the car because it'll overheat and die. So Tesla has a mode where you can keep the car running. Since it's not a gas car, it doesn't take a lot of battery. It just keeps the AC going. It's locked and a dog can hang out inside. Apparently, someone suggested it on Twitter and Elon saw it. And so someone was like, hey, can we get a dog mode for this and that? And he saw it on Twitter in 2018 and said, yeah. And then they came out with it later. So I don't know if it was already in the works.
Yeah.
But the timing does work out where there's a tweet Elon's response, and then months later, dog mode comes out, which I thought was pretty cool if that's how it played out.
Dude, Elon Musk is surprisingly easy to get the attention of.
Shockingly, considering he runs a bunch of companies and is a billionaire.
You tweet at him.
Yeah.
I mean, like, he will...
Donated trees for Mr. Beast.
Yeah.
That was on a tweet, right?
I'll read it. Yeah. It came on to PewDiePie's show. Like...
Yeah, it's cool. I thought that was really cool. Just seeing a random user going, that is a good idea.
I want to know how he makes time for Twitter.
Have you guys heard of Joe Mode?
Joe who?
Joe Mode on Tesla. So this guy named Joe tweeted at Elon Musk saying that he wanted the chime volume to be lower because it's like bothering his kids in the back seat. So they implemented Joe Mode.
See, that's so cool. I think that's so cool.
Yeah, no, I think the feedback, hopefully he's got people helping him read and sort through these ideas, and it's not literally what he does.
It's just amazing at all.
Yeah.
You can't reach us like that.
Yeah.
You know, he's so accessible.
No, that's super cool. I like that. And I don't want Twitter, so we're not going to do it. But
yeah.
I have one more thing. So I got this Eckhart Tolle course. And by the way, after looking at TikTok, watching Eckhart Tolle is so hard.
So boring.
Yes. He's already a slow speaker, and it's one shot for an hour and 15 minutes. But man, coming down from TikTok and that buzz, it's so hard.
Yeah.
So it's on the course which I got, which I am open to, but I was a little skeptical about, was called Conscious Manifestation.
Oh boy.
Yes. And so Conscious Manifestation, the funniest time that it ever happened was you were at this
Oh my God.
event.
I was at a festival. I was at a music festival. It's called Sonic Bloom, and it's outdoors, tents, and everybody there is doing drugs and listening to music. And this guy I'm friends with goes, man, I really need some Molly. I'm going to manifest it. It's like, all right, yeah, cool. You could just like ask people because everyone has it. He's like, no, I'm going to manifest it. And then he did ask someone and they had it. He said, I made the universe do this. Like, maybe it seems a little bit like manifesting that the sun will rise in the morning.
Yeah.
But
the course
that's
a little
my
like that.
sentiment. I am not trying to diminish it. But when I hear people say the word manifestation, I immediately have an internal eye roll because of how I've heard it used like that.
Totally. And some of the examples in here are, there's one bad one. I don't know if it's his wife or it's his business partner, but she tells the story of how there was a time in her life she was really low on money, and she had to choose between paying to keep her car on the road for life or like food and rent and being certain. And something inside her, people are like, no, go food, go rent. She's like, no, I'm going to do the car. And then a week later, she got a call because it was Christmas time, and somebody said, we have a gift for you. And she got the gift, and it was almost exactly as much money as she spent on her car, plus like $50. But like, how perfect is that? And I was like, that's, you think, what? How is that evidence that this intuition was the right thing to do? What a weird survivor bias of a decision. That's like making a bad bet in poker, winning on the river, and then saying that the universe is there for you. I don't. So
especially if it encourages you to make more bad bets in poker, because that's the thing about poker. Any one hand, 2-7 offsuit can win you the hand. But if you continue to play against the odds, you will lose. That's the thing about math.
Yeah. So I enjoyed the course mostly because it forced me to slow down and listen to this slow talking man who talks about being, and I like that. But when it gets,
and we like Eckhart.
Yeah, I like Eckhart, and I even like, her name is Kim. I like her as a teacher, but man, the examples that they give.
Yeah.
I am just not there yet of that being an impressive thing that anyone should aspire to. That said, the course is about being still, and I try to be still more, and that's a good thing. But man, this conscious manifestation part of it, I really I'm watching him. You can't be serious.
Yeah,
that's it was exact. Here's what she says: it's exactly the same amount of money plus like an extra $50.
Yeah,
you can't count. Yeah. If you view the world and you you look for all the ways in which the universe is working for you, it is. And actually, I think that's a wonderful way to live.
Yeah.
Is to seek out the things to be grateful for. And oh my gosh, wasn't that perfect? But if you let it inform your decision making in the future.
If in the next time that you need food, you buy a purse.
Yes.
Because you're positive that you can manifest the food money, that's not a good strategy. Mm-hmm. That's all we're saying.
Yes, but in retrospect, to be grateful and go, wow, like things really have worked out.
Yeah, thank
for
God
me.
I got to make that bad decision and still eat.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for that.
Yeah, no, gratitude, good.
Yeah.
Poor decision making, bad.
So yeah, that's all the things that I had this week. It was an interesting one. I've been reading a lot, and I've had a lot of time because of this little dopamine diet I've been trying to do.
Nice.
Anything else from you?
No, let's go on. I got some stuff, but they're not good.
Okay, let's do it. What do we have this week?
First thing I got is a kid from a Ugandan refugee camp saw a computer for the first time at the camp and decided he wanted to make video games. So his mom spends 3 years like saving up money, buys him a $300 laptop. He walks 3 hours to a generator both ways, teaches himself to code off like a USB like flash drive tutorial.
Wow.
His friend gifts him Grand Theft Auto. And at this point he admitted he thought video games like were not created by man. He thought they were created by like the heavens,
Because
like, that's like his quote.
They drop them out of the sky.
I guess I don't know. He just said he thought they were from heaven. I don't think he was talking like metaphorically either. Like
it makes sense. There's that quote, which any technology sufficiently advanced appears as magic.
Yeah.
Right. And this video game is in this crowded city of where you're driving cars. He's like, this is so fantastical.
Yeah.
The premise of this game is absurd.
Yeah, and so he, learned, and then he coded his first game, which is about, funnily enough, like the opposite of GTA. It's about like running from violence and being like a refugee and like gathering supplies and resources and surviving. Won a bunch of awards, and now he's just like rolling with it.
That's incredible.
It's incredible that he was able to do so much with so little resources.
Yeah. I'm always interested in that. How do we get that kind of return on investment? Like, here's a kid that needed nothing. just a shot at a shot.
Yeah.
The ability to walk 3 hours, to teach himself to code, to come back and
How do you arm kids with that level of resource?
The ones that are so close, they've got everything in terms of breaking out, breaking through, creating a better life, and need the mildest of facilitation or encouragement. How do you get that there? I don't know how to find the thems of the world, but man, that's incredible.
Yeah. I'm always just impressed because I don't know how to code video games, and I didn't have to walk to a generator.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I just didn't put the time in to learn that skill. So I'm always amazed when people overcome so much to become talented at something.
That's super cool. By the way, we crossed 300,000 with our charity water thing.
Hooray.
Thank you guys to everyone who donated. I was especially happy because we didn't hit it. We were at 296 and change, and I was like, okay, I'm just going to make sure that this hits exactly the number 300. So we opened it up. I wrote a check to get us there, sent it to him. By the time the check got there was an additional $1,500 in there.
Nice.
And that made me very, very happy because the videos that we've made have continued to point people towards this. And even months after having made them, people from literally all around the world, because now our foreign language channels have done the Keanu Reeves video that pointed to charity water. There's these Russian people with Russian comments that I can't even realize who are sending money. I thought that was super cool, and I would like to keep it open. They always try to shut these things.
So I have been working with Charity Water because their system is such that they cannot send the funds to get the well until they close the campaign.
Really?
It seems like a very silly system. Just go, guys, the first 300,000's already been sent.
Yeah.
But so what they were like, yeah, we can't, this and that. And so I said, can you please ask your dev team to create a pop-up that says this campaign is closed, but you can go here to donate for a similar cause? Because they're not equipped for recurring traffic. Normally people do birthday fundraisers.
And it's over.
And you go, my birthday's in August, and by December, no one's giving me birthday presents. So you can just shut it. And so I wrote them, I was like, hey, this is going to keep getting traffic. Can we come up with some system? And so hopefully there'll be a way for people to keep giving.
Pop-up isn't as good.
I know. I said, can you leave it open?
Pop-up ain't going to work.
They can't send the money unless we close the campaign.
More. Okay, that's fine.
I told them to close it and send the money.
Okay, fine. That's a bummer.
I know, it's a silly system.
Yeah, maybe we could just open a new one after they send it. Start a new campaign. Cool. We'll do that. That's neither here nor there for the podcast. What else do we have?
Okay, so E. Hughes is the first guy. He says, I have friends who I've known for 15 plus years who are very different to myself, from taking different routes in education and therefore approaching problems with different mindsets. However, when I look at the more recent friendships, we all seem to have much more similar interests and ideologies. Have I been subconsciously filtering different people out of my life? It makes me wonder whether I'm missing out on a lot of fun and interesting conversations and friendships because of my own prejudice. Do you put any energy into developing friendships with people who do not create a good first impression?
It's
a great question.
Yeah.
Very nuanced.
Very, very, well, there's layers to it.
Yes.
So
the first part, that happened to me too. All my friends are still in finance because I was on a track where you go to University of Pennsylvania, you go to investment banking, you go to private equity, and then I went to Brazil. So as you can imagine, everyone else stayed in New York, married, got pregnant. Now they have children and they work at hedge funds. So I feel you on the first part, but I do think you can still stay friends with those people, even while they live incredibly different lives. I was actually just texting with my buddy Austin. We're going to plan a trip. Like, I don't think that just because people are living different lives than you means that you have to fall out of friendship necessarily.
Yeah. Well, what does happen there, but you said there's a process of changing who you surround yourself with that you guys see each other, once a year now?
Yeah, that's geographic more than anything. Yeah. I chose to leave New York. That immediately puts pressure on any friendships with people in New York.
Sure. And if you change your job and you're not next to the same people, I think for better and worse, I'm sure in some ways, the decisions that you make close off other doors in your life.
Yeah.
And then you surround yourself with people who have chosen to close off those other doors, which means they naturally believe similar things to you.
And I think a lot of people deal with this. That's why I think it's a great question.
Yeah. So that's the first part of the question is, have you subconsciously been filtering? Not necessarily. You might have just been making decisions that put you in particular places that surround you with like-minded people who made similar decisions to be where you are.
Yeah, if I'm from the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania, which is super Republican area, and then I go to Stanford and then go to San Francisco for a job, I won't have to have subconsciously filtered out people. I will be in a city with a bunch of tech liberals, and it won't be because I'm biased against the conservative people I grew up with. It'll just be because I made two decisions, Stanford and then tech, and that did all the filtering for me. So yeah, I don't think it necessarily indicates a subconscious bias.
So that's the one thing. But then the second, I guess there's even a question that's not in there, which is, should you seek out people who have differing opinions to yourself? I would love to talk with more people. I'm like, we got to do this call-in thing. Justin, we're going to figure out how to find that sheet. Were you able to pull it up?
No, I think
we'll get you the sheet.
Right.
So we'll get you the sheet. We don't know the access to it. We'll figure it out.
Ivan is the answer.
If you guys want to write in, and especially if you disagree with us, let's do it, because I don't unfortunately have the opportunity to talk with enough people that think differently. I only can view them on the internet, and there's no opportunity for a dialogue, which can be a bummer. So if you want to, and you think differently than Ben and I do, here's your chance. Write in.
No, to your question of, I don't purposely filter out people with different opinions necessarily. I'm not trying to avoid people who feel differently about certain things. I do, which is part of your question, probably filter out people who make a bad first impression.
Totally.
And I think that is just human. That's why we teach it. That's why we think it's so important. I think it's tough to assume that everyone that makes a bad first impression has a gem of best friendship in them, is going to lead you to a lot of conversations that aren't good with a lot of people. And then you see them again and it's still not good. So you might find a diamond in the rough. In fact, at some point you definitely would, but that would be a bold filtering process that I would not personally tell someone they have to do. Because let's say you have 20 interactions and they're all bad and one's good. Well, you hang out with that one person again, it's very likely to be a pleasant interaction as well. To try to find the diamond in the other 19, you're probably going to have somewhere between 18 and 19 bad second conversations. So I think that would take a lot of time, and that's a very precious resource, spending it with people you don't like, hoping that you'll grow to like them. And you might, and that's the thing. You are going to miss out on that, but that's why making a good first impression is so important.
Yeah, and if there is one thing you could do, it's to broaden your capacity to connect with different kinds of people. So if you find that you're never able to connect with an introvert because you're just blaringly loud all the time, adding the skill of being able to slow down, see who in a conversation isn't speaking, ask a question, give them some breathing room to make a good impression can be a good thing. But I would agree with you in that it's just impractical to make space for everybody who doesn't make a good impression in your life.
Yeah. I would allow yourself to befriend people who you get along with who happen to say things you disagree with. So if you are an atheist and you find someone who is a theist, don't make that be an instant friendship ender. If you're a theist and you meet an atheist, I would say, yeah, that's a great idea. You meet someone, you get along great, but you find out this one thing about them. Have a dialogue about it instead of filtering them away. Sure, that sounds great. But yeah, you can't do it for everyone that has a bad first impression.
And it sounds like you're doing this. The last thing is no need to be judgmental of the people with whom you don't hit it off with. That you don't need to say, oh, those are the bad people and the ones that I like are the good people. You can just say, those are the people with whom I didn't immediately connect and match, but I remain uncertain as to their character because I don't know them very well.
They're not bad people.
Yeah. All right, what else?
Next one is from Zach Verhoff. He says, I have hit a family-based roadblock. I'm 18, living with my parents and working a lot. The issue is, whenever I bring up being suffocated by them or wanting to move out soon, my mom gets really emotional and shuts down any dialogue. I love my parents and I don't want to hurt my mom, but I can feel myself becoming a little resentful and would like to discuss these things sooner rather than later. So I would like advice on how I can speak honestly without hurting those around me.
Okay. So, do you want to start or?
Yeah, I mean, I have a thought. It's tough. I think honesty is going to be your salvation here, but that doesn't guarantee every conversation is going to go well.
Yeah.
So that sounds like the question is, how do I be honest without upsetting my mom? You might have to pick, and I would pick honest, but your mom will have to come around. Now, there's packaging honesty in the way that is most empathetic to the other person, where you acknowledge their feelings and you start the conversation by saying, hey, mom, I know you love me. I love you too. I know this is a tough conversation to have, but I think it's really important for the future of our relationship. Blah, 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 blah. I sense myself resenting you, right? Versus just being like, you suck and I'm starting to hate you and I got to move out, right? Which, by the way, based on how thoughtful this question is, I don't think this person would do, but I'm just saying there's more to it than just speaking your truth. But sometimes you don't get to be honest and have no friction.
Yeah.
And I would go honest. So that's my high level.
So a good thing to, the definition of insanity being doing the same thing over and over again, what you'll often find is with every individual in your life, you have environments in which you converse and ways in which you talk. So maybe every time you speak to your mom, it's at the dinner table in front of the family with a particular tone of voice after a ritual of how was your day. Ask yourself what mode of conversation would be incredibly foreign. And for instance, that might be like while she's hanging out in the house and when you would normally be doing homework or video games or something, say, come down, hey, mom, we haven't had a chance to talk. Do you have a few minutes?
Yeah, or take a walk with her.
Yes, or take a walk. That's a great example. Something that would be so different.
Yeah.
And what that does is it pulls people out of autopilot and it brings this heightened awareness and consciousness of like, what's going to happen? Okay. And it allows sometimes, assuming that you're not like, here's a gun, mom, I'm going to, it's not that different. It's a calm different. It allows people to not react in the fight or flight way and instead to not have conditioned patterns of reaction and to be a bit more authentic, spontaneous to the situation.
Yeah. And since it sounds like you guys have a good relationship, at the risk of repeating my ketamine breakthrough from last week, come from love. And what I mean by that is recognize your mom's position as well, which is that she loves you very much, it sounds like. And even if she doesn't present it in this way,
she's afraid to lose
the idea of you being not in her home hurts her or scares her, or she's afraid that you won't be as close or something, right? She's doing it because that scares her of some kind. So I think recognizing that and saying, hey, listen, I wanted to talk to you, this and that. I understand that this scares you, or I understand that this makes you nervous, and
if
you're
she
worried
says
about
no,
our relationship.
let her put it in her own words, right?
Sure.
If she says, no, I'm not afraid. It's okay. So what are
is
you?
Yeah, what is it? Explain to me. That's actually a very good point too. Oftentimes what I like to do if people and I aren't on the same page is I try to figure out why, so you can address their concerns, because maybe you think it's one thing, but she actually just thinks you don't make enough money. Maybe she's the kind of mother who's really nervous about your financial security. Yeah. And so addressing that will make her more comfortable with it. So yeah, I think if you can figure out, take her to a safe place and a different place, break her out of the standard mode, try to be empathetic to her position, and then try to figure out what about it makes her uncomfortable. I think that's your best bet at being successful. But yeah, I think you nailed it. The idea of staying for her sake is just going to make your relationship terrible.
Yeah, and she's going to constantly live with the fear that you'll leave. And also at some level she'll know that she's not doing good by you, and that's going to bother her. So
also, I don't want this to invalidate everything we just said. I do think you should do it in the best way possible, but a lot of times once you rip the Band-Aid off, these things are
Go away.
non-issues.
Yeah.
So try to handle it as well as possible. But I actually think were you just to pack all your stuff up, move in the middle of the night, have a new place, you're 18, they can't stop you, your relationship would probably be fine in like a month or a week or whatever it is. So I'm not encouraging that, but I'm just saying a lot of times there's a lot of fear around something, and then once it happens, it's
she'll survive it.
I survived it.
She'll cry the first day that you're gone, and then you'll be out and you'll call her and she'll realize that
it's
you're
when any
still
kid
in
goes
her
to
life.
college,
Yeah.
and your mom cries when you leave, but then it's just fine. You call her in a week.
Sure. You'll do good. I believe in you.
It's a good
What
question.
else?
Next up is from Scott R. He has a short question. Do either of you have any favorite quotes from a charisma book you've read that have moved you?
From
Sure,
a charisma
paraphrasing is
book
fine.
that I've read?
Maybe just
I got a bunch.
Well, why don't you start then?
No one wins an argument. That was a life-changing quote for me. That's Dale Carnegie. I really liked to try to show off my intellect by arguing about things and then besting people, and doesn't make anyone like you. It doesn't make the audience like you. It doesn't make the person you're bickering with like you. So that was a big one for me. I like that a lot. No one wins an argument.
Interesting. What else? Because I don't have any.
Sure. This one's it's not charisma related. It's in the 4 Hour Work Week, but it's actually from Machiavelli's The Prince. And it is make mistakes of ambition and not mistakes of sloth. Develop the strength to do bold things and not the strength to suffer. And that for me hit me at a point in my life where I was working a job I didn't like, but is a good job, dating someone who is amazing, but I didn't think was right for me. And I was getting very good at just dealing with it, going, I don't want to be in this relationship, but I'll make the best of it. I don't want to be at this job, but I'll make the best of it. And when I read that quote, I went, wow, I am developing the strength to suffer in a, dramatic way, which is to say I'm getting good at being happy despite not liking the decisions I'm making. And the quote really inspired me to go, you know what, let's screw up by chasing what we actually want. Instead of being afraid that I'll die alone if I end this relationship. Let's try to actually get the relationship we want. And instead of being scared that I will starve to death if I actually pursued my dream business, let's do it. Let's not get really good at sleeping under the desk and having fun in a cubicle. So yeah, that was a life-changing quote for me.
I'm trying to think. I don't know that they're charisma related. I actually have a document in my Google Drive that is just all the quotes that I've liked over the various years, and some of them I'm sure have stuck with me. The one that comes to mind as being charisma related, it's Mark Twain, and I don't know if it was a character to another character, but it starts with, son, always be honest. That way you'll never have to remember what you said last time.
Yeah, I love that one. I love that quote.
I really like it because honesty is often presented as the moral choice. Do it because it's right, but really it's going to hurt you.
Yeah, disadvantageous, but the right thing
thing to do. And that made me recognize that it's the smart thing from a selfish perspective.
Yeah, I've seen that in my own life too.
Oh my gosh, what a cognitive weight to not have to manage the lies that you're telling.
And your life gets better when you tell your employers that you're going to leave because you want to start a business. Yeah. They don't hate you for it. They actually go, what business? Or when you're in the dating world and you tell people, this is the kind of relationship I want. It's the only way that you get the kind of relationship that you want. So yeah, funny enough, honesty is the best policy because it's moral, but also because it's what gets you the life you actually want.
Totally. And I've talked about this in Charisma on Command videos, but I think the best analogy for honesty, if you're not yet convinced, is being honest is like paying in cash, and telling lies is like paying in credit with a very high interest rate.
Yeah. Yep.
And what ultimately happens is that when somebody is lied, and they're confronted with the truth, they go, oh man, telling the truth sucks. You know what I mean? This is going to suck so bad. And it's like, no, this is a result of you having gone out on credit, and now you're paying it back with interest. Like this was a result of the lie, not of telling the truth. Had you told the truth, you would have had a small, uncomfortable conversation. I'm not saying that you've done this poorly, but there's been some level of communication breakdown with that earlier question from the 18-year-old who's living at home. And it's like these conversations had sooner, and maybe you are having it sooner, are better than if you were 22 and now you've got 4 years of interest on the lie that you've been telling your mom that you want to live at home forever, right? So that's just another thing to consider, is even we often associate pain with telling the truth, and really that's the lie disguising itself.
I like it.
I have a ton other, but they're not charisma related.
No, it's fine. Give us one more.
all models are wrong, but some are useful, I think is one of my favorites.
Interesting.
So I will teach you guys the 4 emotions to make a great first impression. You will learn the spiral dynamic way of understanding humans. You'll learn formulas and all these kinds of things to try to understand the world. The first part of the quote, all models are wrong, says that you cannot possibly simplify the complexity of reality into a single statement. And that's true, right? Do these 4 emotions work guaranteed every person who has ever lived all the way throughout history without a modicum of no? There's going to be slight adjustments.
Nah.
Now, the question is it useful? And the answer is yes, it's incredibly useful because these work almost every time. And quite frankly, if you go out and do it, you're going to see, and it feels like it works every time. But to boil human interaction down into any sentence is necessarily to cut out
some nuance.
Infinite nuance, quite frankly, but it just might not be pertinent to your goal. So that's what I often think. And when I get locked into any sort of ideological thinking of this is how it ought to be done and this principle needs to apply, I try to remember this is just a tool, and when the tool stops working, drop it and pay attention to reality. So if there's ever a transformation and those 4 emotions no longer create first impressions, I will not stay attached to those 4 emotions. I will rebuild a new model based on reality. Up to now, they seem to do just fine.
Nice.
Cool. That's it for me. Any other thoughts or questions? Is that it?
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
Boom. All right, cool. Thanks to our sponsor, Charisma University. If you guys made it to the end and you want to check out the course, 30-day action guide, 20 minutes a day, max out your charisma. You can do it at charismaoncommand.com/university. Anything else you'd like to say?
No, thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you guys. Peace.